Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for my thoughts and my rational perspective on Chelsea 2, Spurs 2. Just got back from the game. The first time I've been at Stamford Bridge for any game since Feb 2020. So I wanted to get a review out. Apologies, it is on the webcam. I've got the studio behind me. It's been a very hectic few days, as I explained in my video yesterday. Hoping for the Villarreal game, absolutely going to be in the studio with the camera on and all that good stuff. But I wanted to give you my thoughts on tonight's game. Just amazing to be back at a game of football watching Chelsea live. I mean, that's the most basic thing. There was a real nice energy around Stamford Bridge tonight. In the first half and in periods, it felt like, in the build-up to the game, it didn't feel like a pre-season friendly at all. It felt like a big game in the Premier League, and the intensity was there. The fans wanted to win. We got to see, obviously, the Champions League paraded around from Dave and Mason and Chilwell, obviously. Were on the pitch, as well as the whole squad. It was a really nice atmosphere, and so much has changed since I've been at Stamford Bridge. A change in head coach, many new players, and it was exciting to see them play. The game in itself, some standout performers. Yes, the scoreline, the way the second half went, wasn't the way Chelsea would have hoped it had gone, especially at halftime, the dominance Chelsea had. But as I was stressing pre-season, as I think you guys know, it can be so hectic, and the amount of changes Chelsea made at around, I want to say, the 60-65 minute mark, where to be it's rude, but the B team basically came on. You know, the team that for the first hour I think was pretty close to what you'd consider a first team for Chelsea, with the players involved, and that's maybe where I could give a firmer judgment on what I saw. When you've got Davide Zappacosta, Timothy Bakayoko coming on, I felt very sorry for him in that second half. A lot of players that you don't feel have futures at Chelsea, and in the next couple of days could be on their way out the club. You know, it's very hard to judge that, but I felt that there were several performers. Number one is the man. There he is, Hakim Ziyech. I watched Ziyech at the Bridge, but against us for Ajax, when he had that brilliant performance. I was there for that game, that manic 4-4. But it's the first time I've seen him live in a Chelsea shirt, and he was absolutely brilliant tonight. He orchestrated the play. He's had a really good couple of games. I think the way he performed against Arsenal was really good, and it's typical. He somehow managed to miss the chance, one of the easiest chances he's ever going to get against Arsenal on Sunday, but he scores an absolutely brilliant couple of goals. The first one in particular, the left-footed strike, was sensational. It really was, right into the bottom corner. And all night he was finding pockets of space. He was really being that conductor of play. But I guess the perspective change when you're actually at the ground is you get to see things that you don't on TV. And the work rate of Ziyech is something that I think should be appreciated. His pressing, winning the ball back, moving, adding that energy that maybe could have lacked last season. I believe, based on what I've seen so far, I'd fully back him to be in that starting 11 against Villarreal in a week's time in the Super Cup. And kind of a player that we maybe have dismissed, you know, given the fact he wasn't always the main starter for Thomas Tuchel. The injury problems he had last season, the consistency problems, but it feels like the break, the pre-season has really, I think, reinvigorated Hakim Ziyech. And I believe that you have to tailor-made, I think his role in the team kind of has to be tailor-made for him. I think he can't just be another cog in Tuchel's system. I think you have to make him sort of the creative hub. You have to allow him the space to drift deep, get into those natural positions where he can move across the pitch, he can move to deeper positions, he can drill the ball forward into really dangerous places. And maybe we'll get to the end of the review with the other big news tonight involving a potential massive transfer for Chelsea. I'm very excited to see what Ziyech can do. So 2 goals for him tonight. The second one was kind of deflected, but once again, getting into a good position, finishing the chance well. Great night for Ziyech. He was kind of the standout performer. Other standout performers, Mateo Kovacic was excellent. He really was, alongside N'Golo Kante. I'll speak about Kova first, because another player that maybe you aren't considering first choice ahead of Jorginho, but I think Kovacic was really, really good tonight, and he was doing things, forward passes, really being aggressive with his passing, which is what Chelsea are going to need, and maybe what we've lacked from central midfield. And Kova, I think, worked really well with N'Golo Kante, and I want to give him praise because there weren't many things Kova did wrong tonight. Every part of his game, the athleticism, his dribbling ability, the ability to get out of tight spaces, all the things that you praise in Kova's game, it's always that kind of final part of his game to create something, but I really want to give him credit, but because I think he was creating things for Chelsea tonight, so I want to give him praise, and it's great to see him with this sort of form after only returning last week, kind of getting ready for the season. So I wouldn't be too stunned if maybe he's in the starting 11 alongside N'Golo Kante, who was just taking the mick in that first half. I think he mugged off Dele Alli a few times, definitely nutmegged Dele Alli, and his tackle is brilliantly timed tackle as expected for Kante, set up the first goal, and N'Golo was just brilliant. He got 45 minutes, he was taken off half time for Timué Bakayoko. Obviously very different outcomes for both players on the night, but he is just astonishing, N'Golo, and hard to kind of, once again, it's you run out of ways to praise this guy, but I don't know, he's a freak of nature, he really is, and it was a privilege to watch him live again tonight, to see how good he was and how great he's going to be for us this season again. So good to get more minutes in the legs for N'Golo Kante. Other big performers tonight, Trevor Chalobah, I think is a guy that has to be mentioned here. He didn't get the full 90 like he got against Arsenal, but he really is impressing me. He looks composed. That the low moves he's had over the years, I think, have given him a lot of experience. He doesn't seem phased by the fact that maybe he's getting more chances now in the first team, playing alongside the likes of Kurt Zouma and Antonio Rudiger. And I feel like, Dujon Sterling wasn't involved tonight. I'm not quite sure why, but we've kind of been looking at Sterling, looking at Chalobah, looking at Loftus-Cheek, some of these players that can any of them stay with the first team squad this season, and I think Chalobah's given himself a great opportunity to do so. He's been in front of Tuchel a number of times now, the Peterborough game, obviously involved in training, played a large period of the Bournemouth game, played the whole of the Arsenal game, and played I think about 80 minutes tonight before Miazga came on. So all round for me, Chalobah, do Chelsea need to spend 60 million on Jules Koundé this summer? Could Chalobah fill that role as a potential rotational player? I want to hear your thoughts on that, because he impressed me. Callum Hudson-Odoi didn't have as big of an impact as I would have wanted him to. Had some nice moments, but once again, in that right wing back position, I prefer him on the left personally, and unfortunately we didn't see that from him tonight. But he's probably had a decent pre-season. I'd expect him to get decent minutes against Villarreal too. Just thinking across the team, Kai Havertz had some nice moments, but didn't really get into the game in the way you would have hoped to. Timo Werner's game, I think we can be a little bit, I think it's patronising to Werner, some of the praise he gets in terms of just doing basic things. I still think there's a technical side to his game that just doesn't impress me as much, and he had a really good chance in the second half that he should have been putting on target, and kind of summarises why Chelsea are about to break their transfer record for another forward. I think will help Timo Werner and will help our whole attack in terms of increasing probably our clinical edge that it has been missing. But Werner, had some decent moments where he got in behind. Definitely his run, I think, allowed Ziyech that space against Spurs. So I think that absolutely for the first goal, you've got to give Timo credit for that. But he's always doing that, and that's kind of a natural part of his game. I don't think that's an outstanding part of his game. But yeah, it was, substantial minutes for Timo Werner, getting him ready for the season. The second half, I don't want to pile in on Bakayoko. I guess the question is just, why is he out there? And it's the same question we could be asking for Davide Zappacosta, Baba Rahman that we saw, Kennedy. I know it's making up the numbers, but it's just, I feel sorry for Bakayoko that he's put in that situation because he shouldn't be at Chelsea anymore. You could tell the mental side is just, he's just not at the level to play for Chelsea. But I also think it's not like this guy hasn't played football. He's been on loan. He's been to Napoli. He's been to AC Milan in recent seasons. It's just that maybe there's the baggage there, the psychological baggage of him not working at Chelsea, and you feel like for a few of these players, they know their careers aren't at Chelsea long term, and I'm sure that's going to have an impact on them even in a pre-season friendly. And yeah, it definitely didn't help Chelsea, leading to I think the first Spurs goal, and the second one too. Just the midfield wasn't there for Chelsea in the second half like it was in the first, and Spurs definitely capitalised on, unfortunately, pulled back to a 2-2 draw. I think Mendy maybe could have done better with the second one. Obviously, the next scheduled game for fans is Villarreal, the Super Cup next week, which we'll be building up to. Check out Football London. I've got some articles that have been written in recent days. In my first few days at Football London, I had a Callum Hudson-Odoi piece that I promoted yesterday. Got a massive Lukaku piece where I'm saying, for me, propaganda. It's kind of Lukaku propaganda, why I think he's the perfect forward for Chelsea. So obviously that's very relevant right now as the move seems very, very imminent. Seems like it's going to be happening, which is amazing news. And an earlier piece today was about Chelsea's sort of frailties in the Premier League, losing games then they're expected to win, and kind of going into the job Tuchel has to do to kind of bridge the gap between us and Manchester City. I will be writing a couple more pieces, obviously, in the coming days. A kind of a post-match piece, I would say, probably on Hakim Ziyech. I'll probably be writing a piece on that tomorrow, and maybe the centre-back Jules Koundé situation as well. So stay tuned for that on Football London, as well my streams with Jay McIntosh at Chelsea FL and Football London. And obviously I'll be sharing all of the content on my Twitter at SonOfChelsea, plus the content I'm posting to this channel. I think probably the next video I'm going to be making may be about Chelsea's biggest signing ever. Potentially given the fee it could be. So Lukaku seems like he's on his way back to West London. So we'll be talking about that in the coming days. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.